Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, a channel solely focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. You know guys, you always gotta look for the right sign. Back when Joe Biden's campaign was failing and flailing, starting to tank into the ground, you didn't look to the polling data for evidence of that, because it took months for the polling data to catch up. Nope, where you needed to look was at the media. The moment those in the media started to tell the truth about Joe Biden, the moment you knew pretty much the jig was up. The moment they started to throw Joe Biden under the bus, well, you knew pretty much the writing was on the wall. They were discontent with him, and it was clear that the establishment had given up. So essentially all that to say that you gotta look for the right signs. Well, now of course we got Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden, and obviously everybody's looking for the signs that this honeymoon period is over, that Kamala Harris is essentially done, that the panic is starting to set in, and I think I found the sign to essentially confirm it. And I think at this point, I finally found the right sign to come to that conclusion. It's not in the polling data, but rather in Kamala Harris's actions and her campaign decisions. All of a sudden, after 2.5 months of media blackout, Kamala Harris has scheduled a whole slate of interviews. I'd call it an interview flurry, all set up for the next couple of days early this week. And that right there tells you they're panicking. It tells you that they know her campaign is headed straight for the dumpster. We're seeing a complete 180 in terms of strategy here. Let's have a conversation about it. We got some stuff to get into. So let's roll the tape. Alright folks, so it's no surprise that it hasn't exactly been a cakewalk for little Kamala here. Especially over the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty tough. She continues to drop precipitously in the polls, sinking further and further, slowly getting close to matching Joe Biden's abysmal numbers. And so the alarm bells are obviously ringing. The basement strategy is no longer working. And of course we know that that's their strategy. It was pretty public. It was kind of a if it ain't broke, don't fix it approach. The media was working overtime, sending Kamala's political stock directly into the sky. I mean, a meteoric rise out of nowhere, 20+ point jumps in approval rating, a real frickin' clown show, and a lot of people were saying, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We just want to win. She doesn't have to do interviews. We just need to win. That's what Quentin Tarantino and others were saying. And so logically, you would assume that now, if there's all these calls for Kamala Harris to start doing interviews, well, it stands to reason that their strategy broke. It is now broken and they must fix it.
Andrea. And I think they've got to double down on doing more interviews and serious interviews, because what I'm hearing from Democratic and Republican business people and a lot of men, and she's got such a big problem with men. I think there's an undercount of the Trump vote. I think there is misogynation in all of this, black and white men. Big problem, but also the business world. They don't think she is serious. They don't think she's a heavyweight. And a lot of this is gender, but she's got to be more specific about her economic plan.
MSNBC's Andrea Mitchell calls on Kamala Harris to do some serious interviews because she's facing so much misogyny, when what they mean by misogyny is basic scrutiny and accountability. But anyways, the point is, I guess the calls to action have been heard. All of a sudden, I'm seeing reports that Kamala Harris will appear in a whirlwind of interviews, most of them friendly. Here's what her schedule looks like, according to CNN. On Monday, her interview with 60 Minutes will air. On Tuesday, she has an interview with The View, the Howard Stern Show, and Late Night with Stephen Colbert. On Thursday, she's doing a Univision town hall and other campaign stops in Las Vegas. And on Friday, she's campaigning in Arizona. So don't you find that a little bit odd? All of a sudden, Kamala Harris has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 interviews set up in a 3-day period. Meanwhile, over the last 2.5 months, she's done, I'm pretty sure, less than 5 interviews. So in the next 3 days, she's going to do more interviews than she's done this entire campaign. Yeah, you pretty much know exactly what that means. A lot of people are saying, well, it's just strategy. They always meant to do this. Give me a frickin' break. It's obvious what's going on here. Kamala Harris isn't convincing anyone. CNN's essentially openly admitting that she stands a dim chance of winning the Electoral College. Poly market once again just shifted. Donald Trump takes a significant lead in the most important swing states. He's now leading in the markets in Pennsylvania specifically. And of course, newsflash, if Trump's leading in Pennsylvania, this election is over. And so the Democrats are in total panic mode. And this is their response. We've just got to do interviews. Kamala, you just got to get the job done. It's exactly the same thing like with Joe. That's why we can notice it right away. We've been seeing this exact kind of behavior essentially for the last 4 years. Joe Biden doesn't exist. He's in the basement. He's a recluse. Until things get bad. He starts dropping in the polls, there's a scandal, some sort of issue, and then all of a sudden Joe Biden shows his face. They pump him up with a cocktail of substances, and then Joe Biden shows up in a softball interview to gain the people's trust back. It's the exact same thing. They got so mad when Donald Trump said that she's essentially just as incompetent, if not more incompetent, and she doesn't have an excuse. They got so angry, but it's more proof that it's essentially the same thing. They're both just as incompetent. And that's why we're seeing the same strategy here. Hide Kamala Harris as best as possible until we literally don't have any other choice, and then we'll send her out there and kind of be on the edge of our seats, hoping that she doesn't screw up. It's just so incredibly pathetic. And my prediction is here, it's not gonna frickin' work, especially because of the choices. I mean, the shows that she's chosen pretty much tell you all that you need to know. The View, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, 60 Minutes, Howard Stern, Univision, and actually there's a sixth one. She's doing the Call Her Daddy podcast. Brian Stelter describes that podcast here on CNN.
For viewers who are not familiar with Alex Cooper and Call Her Daddy, it's one of the most popular podcasts in the country. It's usually about sex and relationships, sometimes risque, even raunchy conversations about sex. But in this case, for Harris, it's about reproductive rights.
A podcast that focuses on raunchy, sex-fueled conversation. You know, some real serious stuff. Kamala Harris is going into the Dragon's Den. What an absolute farce. She's doing a bunch of softball interviews, just like her predecessor, Joe Biden, in an attempt to shift the story away from her utter incompetence. And of course, the leftoids on X are trying to suggest otherwise. Keith Olbermann writes, that should be the end of the idea that Vice President Kamala Harris isn't doing unscripted, unpredictable tightrope interviews. And his proof for that statement is that Kamala Harris is showing up on Howard Stern's show. You know, bleeding heart liberal, Trump-hating Howard Stern. I mean, what a complete and utter joke. Just to show you how unbiased the Stern show is, they released the announcement that she's going to be sitting down with Howard Stern on Tuesday of this week. And in the post, they closed the comment section. Yeah, definitely enemy territory. Definitely a real tough conversation that they're gonna have. These people think we're stupid. But unfortunately for them, like I always say, the American people are far from stupid. Are there a good chunk of dummies? Sure, but the vast majority, and especially the vast majority of the electorate, they're not this dumb. And just the idea that these interviews are gonna change anything, move the needle, again, give me a friggin' break. We're already getting a sneak peek of Kamala Harris's performance at her 60 Minutes showing.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
There's only one correct response to what I just listened to. What on God's green earth was that? What is she even saying? Again, with the word salad nonsense. This is what's gonna turn it all around for Kamala? It's unfrickin' believable. This person cannot be president, and it's no wonder she doesn't do these interviews unless her back is against the frickin' wall. What an utter disaster. And let's just say her little buddy boy Timothy Walls, well, he's not doing so hot either now, is he?
I want to clarify what the law is there in Minnesota. Abortion Finder, a website that helps women find access, says abortion is legal throughout pregnancy in Minnesota. There is no ban or limit on abortion in Minnesota based on how far along in a pregnancy you are. You signed the bill that makes it legal through all 9 months. Is that a position you think Democrats should advocate for nationally?
Look, the vice president and I have been clear. The restoration of Roe versus Wade is what we're asking for.
But that law goes far beyond Roe v. Wade.
To make her own choice. The law is very clear. It does not change that. That was been debunked on every occasion.
But wait. Let's agree. What you signed is there's not a single limit through 9 months of pregnancy. Roe had a trimester framework that did have limits through the pregnancy. The Minnesota law does not have that.
This puts the decision with the woman and her health care providers. The situation we have is when you don't have the ability of health care providers to provide that, that's where you end up with a situation like Amanda Zaworski in Texas, where they are afraid to do what's necessary. This doesn't change anything. It puts the decision back on to the woman, to the physicians, and we know that this is simply something to be brought up to be very clear. Donald Trump's asking for a nationwide abortion ban.
Wait, he
and
has
again,
said that
we don't see this
he has
as a
said
winning
repeatedly
campaign.
that he will not sign a national abortion ban. Are you calling that just, it's a flat out lie?
Yes, of course. And
a couple things are clear here. Kamala Harris is utterly incompetent and totally unfit for office. And second, it's obvious that they're panicking beyond belief. That is the only reason Kamala Harris is finally sticking her head out of the freaking sand. It's because they realize they're losing. Anyways, that's pretty much what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.